Let's go from the top. Again, Constitution under attack yet again. I'm hearing all these wild claims about it's the President of the United States who's the one abusing it. You have the microphone. Take it away.
It's interesting that people who believe the country began in 1619 with slavery, who accuse the founders of being white supremacists and trash the Constitution as nothing more than a document to protect white slave owners, keep waving around the Constitution as if they advance their Marxist agenda. The fact of the matter is Nancy Pelosi is undermining the Constitution as she claims to be promoting it and cites Benjamin Franklin at the end of the Constitutional Convention. The way this is supposed to work, impeachment is considered an extremely grave act. That's the way the framers debated it. It was the second most debated subject of the Constitutional Convention after the nature of the presidency. They rejected things like maladministration as a basis for impeachment. They rejected the idea that pure politics should be the basis for impeachment. So they put specific language in the Constitution about high crimes and misdemeanors, and a specific process, majority vote by the House, a supermajority vote after a trial in the Senate overseen by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. This is not intended to be some kind of political act. I hear these so-called experts on TV saying impeachment is whatever the House says it is, citing Gerald Ford. That's not what the history of our impeachment clause is. They looked very deeply at British common law, what the Parliament had done with respect to the monarch. They rejected all kinds of proposals, and this is a very high bar. It's not just, well, we don't like a president, or we think he did this, that, or the other thing. So the Senate is in place under the impeachment process to keep a check on the House, because they were concerned. If you look at the Federalist 65, there was some concern that the House would have too much power. The great fear was that a president wouldn't be accountable to the public, but he'd be accountable to the House of Representatives. And that's why they set up this elaborate process. So what did Nancy Pelosi do yesterday? Nothing. She's got 6 of her Politburo chairman types that she handpicks who have the same ideology out of these deep blue metropolitan areas that are not representative of the diversity of this nation, out of mostly New York and Los Angeles, who do what? Who are going to continue to conduct themselves. As she announces that's a formal impeachment inquiry. She doesn't have a vote of the full House of Representatives, which is the traditional process that we have in this country. Why? Because if you're going to go down this road, you need the body politic. You need the so-called representatives of the people engaged in this. She, like a dictator, issues a fiat to her 6 handpicked chairmen to conduct a formal impeachment inquiry. So in other words, a tiny percentage of the House of Representatives, a tiny percentage of the population of the United States is going to drag this entire nation through their left-wing hell, because this is something they've been dreaming to do from the moment this president was elected. And she's going to protect her so-called moderates, of which there are really only a handful, because she wants to cling to power. So there won't be a roll call vote on the floor of the House of Representatives. The fact is, nothing changed at all other than her putting a different label on what she's doing. And of course, the media love it.
Yeah, it's a great analysis, and I started the show with the premise that one of two things is happening: either something that has rarely happened, that is not unprecedented, but has very little precedent, or maybe nothing has happened, because it's sort of been a de facto impeachment inquiry since the moment Trump was elected, not even sworn in. The impeachment talk started during the transition. So now here we are. We're not really that much closer to impeachment than we were before. We're certainly not anywhere closer to conviction. In fact, we're probably further from conviction than arguably we've ever been. But why today? Why today, Mark? Why all of a sudden Nancy Pelosi finally buckles to the squad and AOC and the far left of her caucus and said, okay, fine, we'll at least feign that we're moving forward with it?
I think that Nancy Pelosi, despite all the propaganda on her behalf as the first woman speaker, she's weak, she buckled, she's befuddled, she's got a radical Marxist wing in her party and radical anti-Semitic wing in her party. She's got Nadler, who is being challenged in his Democrat primary by somebody, believe it or not, who is to the left of him. And they're doing this throughout her leadership. She already lost one of her big guys to AOC. So they're scared, and they want to cling to power. And this is the best way she can figure out how to do it. But she's dragging the nation through her hell. The media love this. The New York Times, which really is anti-American and covered up the Holocaust, as I explained in my book, is really a disreputable publication. They're all for this. They hate Donald Trump. People have to understand this is a visceral, psychological problem that the left has. And so this impeachment thing has been hanging over the country since before he became president of the United States. They announced they were going to try and impeach him or indict him upon his election. We have never seen anything like this in American history. We have an election less than 14 months from now. Let the American people decide if they want the president of the United States, not Nancy Pelosi and her Politburo and the celebrating left-wing press.
And you know, it's amazing. These are the exact people that, God forbid, someone on the Supreme Court passed away and there was an opportunity to add a new Supreme Court justice. They would argue already it's too close to the election to add a new Supreme Court justice, which Mitch McConnell's already said he would fill the seat. So it's sort of irrelevant, but they would melt down and light their hair on fire over this. But they think it's a perfectly good time to try to impeach the president. But Mark, impeach him for what? What is the crime, much less the high crime, that the president has allegedly committed? And we haven't even seen these transcripts over this Ukraine incident. So what is it that they think or suspect or want to know or believe he committed?
Well, he hasn't committed anything. He hasn't been charged with anything. Even the Mueller report doesn't say, but for the OLC opinion, we would have charged the president with X, Y, Z. They came up with absolutely nothing because there is nothing. This president has complied with the Constitution. He has complied with court rulings. He's complied with the law. I have an entire section in my book, and I'm not hawking my book, but I have an entire section in my book that shows how presidents have used the IRS against political opponents, how they use the FBI against political opponents, how they've used foreign powers against political opponents. This president has done none of this. Let us say, just for a second, and we don't know as of this interview, that the president of the United States is nudging the newly elected president of the Ukraine to look into Biden. Why is that a problem? You have on your website today an explosive story from Mark Thiessen, who wrote in the Washington Post that 4 top Democrats threatened the government of Ukraine, pushing them to investigate Donald Trump. We know from John Solomon in the Hill newspaper that the Obama administration pressured the Ukrainian government to get involved in the election, which resulted in part in Manafort's dismissal, having nothing to do with the tax issues he was convicted of. We know for a fact that the Democrat Party uses foreign powers all the time. We know that Ted Kennedy, through a surrogate, a former senator, with the highest level of the KGB, tried to defeat Ronald Reagan as he was running for re-election. And we know that the Democrats use foreign powers all the time to try and undermine Republican foreign policy. Nancy Pelosi herself met with the genocidal mass murder in Syria to undermine George W. Bush's policies. I believe that was in 2007. Her predecessor, Jim Wright, met with the Nicaraguan communists to undermine Ronald Reagan's foreign policy. Who the hell do these people think they're kidding? They're trying to disenfranchise nearly 63 million people who voted for Donald Trump.
That's correct.
They attack the Electoral College. They attack separation of powers. They twist the Emoluments Clause. It is precious to see them waving around the very Constitution that they shred each and every day.
That is exactly correct. Mark Levin is here. You should pick up the book on freedom of the press. Again, one of the biggest sellers of the entire year, a nonfiction, very good stuff, or fiction for that matter. It doesn't make a difference. It's a big book. It's a significant book. Life, Liberty, and Levin on Fox News Channel, Levin TV on Blaze TV, and of course the Mark Levin Show, nationally syndicated. But you should listen to it here on Patriot 125, 6 to 9 p.m. And thank you for the plug. An explosive lead story right now. Joel Pollack pulling out a buried lead in Mark Thiessen's Washington Post column.
Alex, let me say this. You guys
go ahead.
Tremendous work. I couldn't be prouder of what you guys are doing. You came under attack, vicious attack. It's just amazing. You guys accused of being alt-right. You're the biggest supporters of the state of Israel anywhere that I can see. You're being attacked for your extremist views. You're constitutionalists. You support what this country's doing. This is what they do. They try and destroy, smear, character assassinate anybody who dares to stand up for liberty in this country. So keep it up.
Mark, I thank you. Well, we will do exactly that. I promise you that we're never going to stop fighting because we believe in this country and we believe in the Constitution, and it needs defenders, and it doesn't have defenders. And have you noticed how the champions of the impeachment movement, they're not doing this on constitutional grounds. They're not doing this on legal grounds. I played a clip of AOC admitting that this is about policy. This is about she doesn't like the policies of Donald Trump. It's not up to her. These people hate the First Amendment. They hate the Second Amendment. They hate the Electoral College. They hate what we were built upon. You're correct to note 1619, which I've been obsessed with, which is that we don't do enough self-flagellating over things that have happened in 1776. We have to go back in time to 1619 and self-flagellate for that. And then we learned one of the top editors and writers on the New York Times 1619 project hates all white people. She's an anti-white bigot.
Yeah, the New York Times has problems hiring anti-Semites, bigots, race baiters, and in my view, it starts at the top. And as far as AOC is concerned, she's a reprobate. If she wants to run the country, then run for president. Other than that, she's nothing more than a media creation. They celebrate her. I've invited her on every one of my platforms, whether it's TV, whether it's digital TV, whether it's radio, and we get crickets. She is a coward and she is a dunce.
So last question for today. Needless to say, as you're familiar with Breitbart's brand, the only political party we have that we have nearly as much contempt for as the Democratic Party is the Republican Party. I'm sad to say, which is sadly our last best hope. But I have no clue what they're doing to hold any of the crooks on the Democratic side accountable. And I don't use that word lightly, Mark. I know you listen from time to time. I'm not one to name call. And there are so many of them, and I don't see anything that's being done by the Republicans to subpoena them, to hold people accountable, to investigate the investigators, to watch the watchdog. I have zero idea what they're doing. And what are they doing? Are they doing anything?
They're doing nothing. How is it that the Senate Intelligence Committee, which is supposedly run by this guy Richard Burr, who's in the Witness Protection Program, how is it that they didn't hold a hearing on Hunter and Joe Biden? Where are their subpoenas?
Yes.
Our good friend, Lindsey Graham, where's he? He runs the Senate Judiciary Committee. I hear all the talk. How about a little bit of action? What are they doing on the Foreign Affairs Committee? How is it that they're not issuing subpoenas? How is it that they're not demanding testimony, public testimony? You know, we do control the Senate, and it is appalling to me what's taking place here. The Biden family is corrupt. Joe came into office, 36 years in the Senate, followed by 8 years as vice president. He's a multimillionaire. His son is a multimillionaire. His brother's a multimillionaire. They have an IQ of negative 19 combined.
Yes.
How the hell did this happen? We'd like to know. And as a matter of fact, Alex, Trump comes in office a multi-billionaire. He's going to leave office a multi-billionaire, but he could have been even worth more. They attack him. How is it that Al Gore comes in office a poor man, and now he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars? The Clintons come into office poor, hundreds of millions of dollars. The Obamas come into office wealthy from a couple books, but now super wealthy. How they make their money using their prior positions, being rewarded by the left, billionaires on the left, Hollywood, and all the rest of it. And yet President Trump comes under attack because of businesses he already created and owned. And they want his tax returns. Well, I'll tell you what. I want Nancy Pelosi's tax returns. I want the past 10 years of Nancy and Paul Pelosi's tax returns. How about every member of Congress, not your financial disclosure forms, 10 years of tax returns? How is it that the Freedom of Information Act doesn't apply to Congress but applies to a president of the United States?
That's right. And how come they don't walk the walk? How come they don't volunteer it? They just volunteer it. Just say the president should do, here it is. Here's 10 years. Illegal or not, whether or not you have to do it, the president should do it. I'm giving you as an example. Here I am, Nancy Pelosi, Al Gore, Hillary Clinton. Could you imagine what a show that would be if they had the 10 of the most well-known Democrats all release their tax returns? You think John Kerry's going to do that? There's no way he's going to do that.
And how about transcripts of all the chairmen of all these committees and their conversation with foreign powers? Wouldn't that be fascinating? Or how about we hear testimony from all their top lawyers in their offices. You see, they would never do that to themselves, what they're trying to do.
Obama's transcripts. Oh, give me those transcripts. Let's get those in the hands of our Breitbart reporters and your reporters at CRTV and elsewhere, Mark.
Yeah, so we've had enough of this. The country is now going to be dragged into this, has actually been dragged into this for 2.5 and 3 years, and I just want your audience to understand this is an attack on us. It's an attack on our constitutional system, and I would argue that what these people are doing is absolutely un-American, period.
Last question. I know you got to run. Do you have hope? Do you have hope we come out of this? Perhaps it backfires. Perhaps we come out stronger if we stick in there and we dig in our heels?
You know, I don't know. I just tell people keep fighting. We can't predict the outcome unless, of course, we stop. So this is our country. Those are our children and grandchildren that are going to suffer as a result of what's being done here. Just keep fighting.